We've gone through a lot of things in FL Studio, and now we're going to look at automating. And this is going to come in handy when we work with synthesizers, or if there's going to be any parameter that we want to change over time without actually having to physically do it ourselves. And this can come in handy for automating volumes, making them quieter during certain parts of a song, or maybe filtering off some parts of certain instruments at certain points. But this process is also a pretty simple one to get through, and we'll be able to apply it in all sorts of different places very quickly. To begin, we know that we saw a little bit of this when we made our automation pattern and we recorded the automation of a few parameters. I'll double click the pattern that we did that on. We know that we recorded just some movement of a knob for a few different controls. And if we pull up the Sim Synth and play this pattern, we can see that knob moving. And you remember we just recorded that by recording notes and automation here, specifically the automation. We'll hit F12 and close that to actually do something that probably comes up more often when you're automating, and that's actually using an automation clip. And the principle is the same. You're just having basically a line or a graph, if you want to think of it that way, for the position of the parameter. You're going to find something you want to automate. It'll be a knob or a parameter inside of a synth. There's all sorts of different places you can do this, but you just right-click and go to Create Automation Clip, and you can see the similarities between our pattern that we put some automation on and this automation clip. On the automation clip, it's very easy. We just can right-click to add points, change the tension in between them with this little dot, and we can move them around. Currently, you'll notice that everything is sliding around when we move something, and that's because the slide is on here, but if we turn that off, we could just have it move without moving every point around it. So there's a few instances where either of those options will be handy. And right-clicking on a point, we can delete it, or we can change the curve type. Single curve is the default, but we could have double curves, anything that moves differently for the movement in between the points that are selected. So any of those are going to be perfectly useful. And you'll notice that if we have an automation clip selected, these two buttons up here are different than if you have a pattern clip or an audio clip selected. But for the automation clip, the step selection, you can draw in notes just like you would in an edit events window. Although a little bit simpler since we have points drawn in now. And if you want to delete a lot of them quickly, you can just kind of drag down like that. But essentially, you just have a much more flexible movement of that automation. You can copy values, paste them onto other ones. Again, you can use C and P after right-clicking to do that a little bit faster. But basically, it's just a quick and easy way to move whatever parameter. As I drag across there, you'll see mod X move around. And of course, you can do that for mod Y, create automation clips for that, hold shift, move it up. And if they're both going to be related, you might want to group those different tracks together. And then you have mod Y, which is resonance, and mod X for the filter cutoff, both controlling a parameter. And like I said, a good way to do that, I'm going to solo this track. I made a little pattern of just a synthesizer with an arpeggio. I'll play the pattern. Change the filter frequency. You can see how that would be nice to do a bit of automating. I'll go into the playlist, right-click on the parameter I want to automate, create automation clip. I'll group those two together and enable it. And I'll draw 2 points and just have a straight line, right-clicking in there to make it linear. And it's simple as that to get that through. One thing, if you do really want to record it, you can just record the same way we did. Just get a control and move it around with record on. And then you can go up to the edit events menu, go into edit, and turn this into an automation clip. And it has to kind of split it up, but I'll just hit accept on the default value there. And now we have the movement of that parameter. I'll right-click below and insert a new playlist track here. Grab it, hold control so I'm moving vertically and I don't accidentally move it to the side or anything. And now we have an automation clip of that same movement for the same parameter. So this is a bit cluttered, obviously. We have a lot of things automating, but we can obviously see that this principle is easy to apply. Wherever it is, you can apply that to a mixer track. You can automate the level there. See that insert 8 is editable. And if we look at that insert, it moves around as we move through that part of the playlist. And you can also do it onto effects. Like say for instance, you don't really want to automate a fader for volume, you can add in a plugin like Fruity Balance. And this is just basically a volume knob with a pan as well. We can automate that instead. I just right-clicked and hit A to make that automation clip, since that, again, is the underlined letter in that. But over here, I have an automation clip for this volume. You can see it move, again, as we're moving around here. So that can be good for moving volumes around or mixing things together if you're making room or doing something in a creative way, but super easy to work with and super easy to apply. In the channel rack as well, these do show up as channels. You'll see that they don't go to a mixer track since they aren't actually generating any sound, but you can pull up each of the different links and they show up as channels. So if you double click one, its respective channel will be highlighted and the channel settings will pop up. They don't have the same channel settings, but there are a few things in here you can enable or disable it with the button, same as over here. You can set the minimum and maximum values, and that just means that the bottom will be whatever this setting is, so a different percentage maybe, and the top of the automation clip will be set to whatever the maximum value is. And that can be helpful if you don't want something to go a full range of 0 to 100%. And additionally, you can also make this an LFO, and you'll see if I click that, you can kind of get the sense of what's happening there. You have different settings for that LFO, changing all these different things. You see how they would affect where the automation clip is, and you can right-click to add points of how much that LFO is applied to the respective parameter linked to the automation clip. And you can actually link more than one thing to an automation clip if you want to right-click on a parameter, link to controller, and pick an internal controller. In this case, we'll link it to the same one as that balance, which is balance the plugin, SimSynth, the track actually that is on the mixer, that's called SimSynth, and volume is the parameter on that plugin. So we'll click that. We'll want to turn off the remove conflicts, because if that's on, it will just replace whatever is currently linked to it. We'll hit accept. And now this parameter, I'm going to turn it off from LFO, so it's just a simpler look, but you can see that we linked that parameter there. And as we move it, that control moves, and also the Fruity Balance will move. So that's a little bit advanced, but it's good to know that you can link all these different things in different ways. And one more quick thing, we don't actually have to have these go for the entire length of the song. We can have them just be short little clips. We can slice them up the same way we would handle anything else. Hold Shift, slice, delete parts of them, loop them, move them around, click up in the corner, and we could make a unique version of it, and that would make another channel where we could use it as a separate controller for separate parameters. And again, we've found ourselves at a very open-ended list of possibilities here. But we can definitely know that there's plenty of opportunities to do cool things with automation in FL Studio. With that, though, we're going to move on into customizing our workspace in the next video, so I will see you then.